I'm 54 years old, and for most of my life, I believed I understood what love was supposed to look like. You marry young, raise a family, and you stay the course. Through the storms and the stillness. I spent years tending to everyone else's needs, letting my own heart grow quiet. I wasn't unhappy. Just numb, maybe. Existing more than living. But then something happened, something I never expected. Something that shook the very ground I'd been walking on for decades. I never thought something like this could happen to me. Please, don't make the same mistake I did. It started with something so ordinary, it almost feels absurd looking back, just a simple ride to the grocery store. It was a Thursday afternoon, the kind where the sky can't decide between spring and summer. I had just stepped out onto the porch with my shopping list when my phone buzzed. My daughter, Emily, was caught up at work again. She's always trying to juggle a million things at once, and asked if Matt, her husband, could swing by and drive me instead. Now, Matt and I always had a cordial relationship. Polite. Respectful. He was the kind of son-in-law you felt lucky to have. Responsible, dependable, a little too quiet sometimes, but kind. We never had deep conversations. Small talk, mostly. How's the garden doing? Need help carrying those boxes? That sort of thing. So when he pulled up in that dark blue truck of his, window down, sunglasses on, I didn't think twice. I grabbed my purse, locked the door behind me, and slid into the passenger seat. "Thanks for the ride, sweetheart," I said, fastening my seatbelt. He smiled, but there was something different in his eyes. Not quite nervous, but not relaxed either. It felt like he was bracing for something. "No problem at all, Susan," he said, pulling away from the curb. Figured it was a good chance to talk. I raised an eyebrow. "About what?" He hesitated, tapping his fingers on the steering wheel. I've been meaning to say something. Been thinking about it a lot." I let out a small chuckle. "Matt, are you trying to break up with me as your mother-in-law?" He laughed, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "No, nothing like that." He paused. I see you. Really see you. And I don't think anyone does. Not even Emily." That stopped me cold. The truck rolled past familiar streets, the old bakery, the elementary school where Emily used to go, the corner lot where neighbors always overwatered their lawn. But none of it felt familiar in that moment. My ears rang slightly, the way they do when something inside shifts unexpectedly. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice lower, unsure. He glanced at me, then back at the road. You carry so much. You smile through it, like everything's fine. But it's not, is it?" I turned to the window, suddenly needing the blur of scenery to distract me. "Matt, that's sweet, but I'm fine. I've been through a lot, sure, but I manage." "I know you do," he said softly. "That's what makes it hurt to watch." His words hung between us like heavy air before a summer storm. I didn't know what to say. Part of me was angry. Who was he to assume what I felt, what I lived with? But another part, quieter and aching, wanted so badly to be seen, even just for a moment. At the red light near the supermarket, he looked at me again, really looked. "You don't have to always be the strong one, Susan." That's when I felt the heat rush to my chest, a strange mix of embarrassment, confusion, and something else I couldn't quite name. "I think you've misunderstood," I finally said. "I'm not. This is inappropriate." He nodded slowly. "Maybe. Or maybe it's just something no one's had the courage to say." The light turned green, and the moment passed, but not completely. We drove the rest of the way in silence, tension wrapping around us like the scent of warm asphalt and sun-baked leaves. When he parked, I reached for the door handle without looking at him. "Thanks for the ride." "Susan," he said gently. I paused, hand on the door. "You deserve more than just getting through the day." I didn't reply. I stepped out, closed the door carefully behind me, and walked toward the automatic glass doors of the store, each step heavier than the last. I didn't know what I was feeling. All I knew was something had changed, and I couldn't unhear what he'd said. I kept hearing his voice in my head. "You deserve more than just getting through the day." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there with the ceiling fan spinning slowly above me, casting soft shadows that moved like thoughts across the walls. The silence in the house, the kind I used to treasure, suddenly felt oppressive. My bed felt bigger, colder, and my mind wouldn't stop circling back to that moment in the car with Matt. What did he see in me that made him say that? Was it pity? Concern? Something else? The next morning, I went about my routine: coffee, a piece of toast, feeding the cat, but everything felt slightly off, like I was watching myself from a distance. I checked my phone and saw a message from Emily, thanking me for understanding about the last-minute change in plans and letting Matt drive me. "He told me you two had a good talk," she wrote, adding a heart emoji at the end. I stared at that sentence for a while. A good talk. That evening, just as I was pulling weeds in the backyard, Matt's truck pulled up again. My heart jumped before my brain had time to catch up. He got out, hands in his pockets, and walked toward the fence. "Emily said you might need help fixing the broken step by the shed," he called out. Of course she did. I wiped my hands on my gardening jeans and walked over, trying to keep my face neutral. I was going to get around to it this weekend. He smiled gently. "Well, maybe you don't have to do everything on your own all the time." There it was again, that quiet, sincere way he had of seeing through me. I hated how much it unsettled me. We walked together to the shed. The step was indeed loose, and he crouched down to examine it. I stood nearby, arms crossed, trying not to look at him. "You know," he said, without looking up, "when Emily and I first started dating, she told me her mom was the strongest woman she knew." I said nothing. "She said you held everything together after her dad left, that you worked 2 jobs and still made dinner every night, that you never cried, not once." I swallowed hard. "I cried," I said softly, "just not where she could see." He looked up then, meeting my eyes. "That's the part that breaks my heart." I turned away, blinking fast. "Matt, why are you saying these things to me?" He stood slowly, brushing dust from his hands. "Because no one ever says them to you, and they should." The air between us went still. The garden, the shed, the slowly setting sun, it all faded into the background. I could feel something rising in my chest, tight and raw. "I'm not sure this is appropriate," I said again, my voice shakier than I wanted it to be. "I'm not trying to cross a line," he said, "but I can't keep pretending I don't notice how lonely you seem." That hit harder than I expected, because he wasn't wrong. I looked down at the cracked step, avoiding his gaze. Loneliness isn't a crime. It's just part of life sometimes. He took a step closer. Not too close, but close enough that I could feel the shift in the air between us. "It doesn't have to be," he said. We stood there in silence, the light softening around us as the sun dipped lower behind the trees. I felt like I was teetering on the edge of something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. When he finally spoke again, his voice was quiet. "You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know someone sees you." Then he turned and walked back to his truck. I didn't stop him. I didn't call after him. I just stood there with my heart pounding and my thoughts tangled and watched the red glow of his taillights fade down the street. That night, didn't sleep either. But it wasn't restlessness. It was something else entirely. A stirring, a remembering. A question I hadn't asked myself in decades. What if there's still more waiting for me? I don't know when it started exactly. That quiet tug in my chest every time I thought about Matt. Maybe it was that first moment in the car, or maybe it had been building for years under the surface, unnoticed like a slow leak in a pipe. All I knew was that after he left that night, I felt awake. For the next few days, I tried to go about my life as usual. I baked, I read, I went to the market. I even visited Emily and the kids on Saturday, sitting in their cheerful living room, sipping tea while Matt helped their youngest with a puzzle. Everything looked normal, felt normal, but something was different. He barely looked at me that afternoon, not in a cold way, but almost respectfully distant. And maybe that should have calmed my nerves. Instead, it made them worse, because part of me wanted him to look, to say something, to cross the space between us again and pull that thread we'd started to unravel. After the visit, Emily walked me out to the car. "He's been in his head lately," she said casually. "Matt, something's on his mind." I tried to keep my voice steady. "Have you asked him about it?" She shrugged. "He just says work's been intense." I believe him. But you know Matt, he bottles things up. I nodded, gave her a soft smile, and drove home with a stomach full of guilt and a heart that wouldn't quiet down. The next morning, it rained. One of those soft, steady spring rains that makes everything smell like new beginnings. I stood at the window, watching droplets slide down the glass, thinking of all the things I wasn't supposed to feel. Then my phone buzzed. "Matt, are you free today? I need to talk to you. Alone." I stared at the message for a long time before typing just one word back. "Yes." He picked me up just before noon. No excuses this time. No errands or broken steps. Just the two of us in his truck, with the world hushed by rain. We drove in silence at first. The wipers moved back and forth like a metronome keeping time with my heartbeat. I could feel him glancing over, trying to find the words. Finally, he pulled over near a quiet park on the edge of town. Empty benches, mist in the air, trees dripping like they were sighing. "I don't know how to say this without it sounding wrong," he said, turning off the engine, "but I haven't been able to stop thinking about you." My breath caught. "Matt, I know how it sounds, and I know it's complicated, but something happened in that car the other day. Something real. I don't know what it means. Not yet, but I can't ignore it." I looked down at my hands, twisting them in my lap like I used to when I was a girl. "You're married to my daughter." "I know, and I love her. But this isn't about choosing one over the other. It's about seeing someone, connecting with someone in a way I didn't expect, in a way I can't ignore." His voice wasn't desperate. It wasn't pleading. It was honest, painfully honest. And that's what made it so hard. "Do you know what you're saying?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "Yes, I'm saying I don't want to pretend anymore. I see how much you've given up for everyone else, how much of yourself you've buried just to keep moving. And it kills me." Tears welled up, blurring my vision. "Matt, I haven't let anyone in like this in years. Not since Emily's father left. Not since I decided it was safer to just stop hoping." He reached out slowly and rested his hand over mine. "I'm not asking for anything you're not ready for. I just want you to know you're not invisible. You're not forgotten. And you're not alone." For a moment, we sat like that, the rain wrapping the truck in silence. His hand was warm, grounding, and mine didn't pull away. I knew the lines we were skirting. I knew the consequences of every unspoken thought that passed between us. But I also knew something else. For the first time in years, I felt seen. Not as a mother, not as a caretaker, but as a woman, a person still capable of feeling, wanting, needing. I turned to him, eyes full of questions. "What do we do now?" I asked. He didn't answer right away, just squeezed my hand, gently, like he was afraid I might vanish. And in that quiet space between us, I realized the answer wouldn't come easily. But the questions, they had already changed everything. I didn't sleep that night. Again. But this time, it wasn't guilt that kept me up. Not entirely, at least. It was something else. Something heavier and deeper, like a knot in the center of my chest that refused to untangle. Matt's words had unlocked something inside me, a part of myself I had tucked away so long ago, I almost forgot it was there. His kindness, his honesty. It felt like a mirror I hadn't dared look into for decades, and now that I had, I couldn't unsee what was reflected back at me. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table staring at my coffee, listening to the ticking clock, letting it measure the weight of time I could never get back. I knew I had to speak to him again, not to continue what had started, but to end it, carefully, truthfully, before it crossed into something that couldn't be undone. I asked him to meet me at the botanical garden. It was a quiet place just outside town, where I used to take Emily when she was a little girl. The same winding paths, the same stone benches under the willows, the same soft air full of blooming things. It felt like the right place for something delicate. He arrived right on time. He always did. He spotted me by the koi pond, and when he walked over, I saw the worry in his eyes. I didn't let him speak first. "I need you to listen," I said gently, "before either of us says something we'll regret." He nodded, folding his hands in front of him like a boy waiting for correction. What happened between us, what we felt, it was real. I know that, and I'll never pretend it wasn't. But Matt, we crossed a line, not with our bodies, but with our hearts, and that line matters. He looked down, jaw tightening, but he didn't interrupt. I let it happen because I was lonely, because I forgot what it felt like to be seen. And you reminded me I'm still a woman, not just someone's mother. I needed that reminder more than I knew. He finally looked up. His eyes were wet. "I wasn't trying to hurt anyone," he said. "I know," I whispered. "Neither was I." A breeze moved through the trees, carrying the scent of lilac. We both sat down on the bench, side by side, not touching, not looking at each other. "Matt, you have a wife, my daughter. She may not see you the way I do, but she can, if you let her in, if you speak to her with the honesty you've shown me." He swallowed hard, then nodded slowly. "And you? What about you?" I have to remember how to see myself again, without someone else's gaze to tell me I'm real. I paused. You woke something up in me, and I'm grateful for that. But I can't be the reason you destroy something sacred, or the person who lets herself live in someone else's shadow. He exhaled, deep and shaky. "You're right."